Today we're looking at Sony's new A7 IV. Now from the A7 III, there are some significant changes to the body. This body is a little bit beefier, it's slightly bigger, and the overall feel of it has greatly improved. One thing I really like is the taller buttons. And what this does is it gives a little more depth to your system. It doesn't feel as flat. It's easier to find the buttons when you're looking through the viewfinder. They've also deepened the grip, so it doesn't feel like it's going to slip out of your hands. I've always felt that Sony lags behind the feel of a Nikon or a Canon in terms of the grip. This body changes that. It feels super solid in the hand. You're not going to drop it. Another significant improvement is the autofocus tracking, specifically the eye and face tracking. Now on this setting, it will automatically find either the left or right eye and keep that in focus. If the head moves and those eyes aren't in frame anymore, it will switch back to general face detection. The other big change is obviously the sensor. The new A7 IV features 61 megapixels. You're going to get crazy detail out of the sensor. Really ideal for landscape or portrait photographers. That being said, there are limitations with the higher megapixel camera. This is the one place where this camera starts to dip down a little bit. It really isn't a low light camera. It doesn't do very well in high ISOs. In order to compensate for noise in higher ISOs, they've created two native ISOs. So when you're in a higher bracket, it switches over. And what that does is it reduces noise, but it drops down your dynamic range slightly. Below that, you've got greater dynamic range, specifically in the highlights, because you don't need the noise reduction. That marker is at ISO 320 for this camera. If you're looking for a camera that's going to do really well in a variety of lighting conditions, but still keep your megapixels to a certain point, go with an A7 III. At 24 megapixels, that should be enough for the general user. Now, if you're a dedicated studio photographer or a dedicated portrait photographer where you can control the light, absolutely jump up to 61. If you're not, you might see the limitations of this body. As far as the buffer goes, you're going to get about 60 shots at full speed, that's high plus, at JPEG or compressed RAW. Shooting uncompressed RAW, you're going to get about 30 shots at 6 frames a second. One of the nice things about a higher megapixel camera, specifically this one, is that you can shoot in APS-C mode. Sony calls that their Super 35 mode, and what that enables you to do is punch in and only use part of the sensor. That gives you about a 1.5 magnification. With this body, you're still shooting at 26 megapixels when you do that. That works for both stills and video. Now, speaking on the video side, this body is really meant for the photographer, not really the media specialist, but it still carries over a lot of the significant specs from the R3. Specifically, you can shoot 120 frames per second at 1080p. You can shoot 4K at 30 or 24. It uses the entire sensor, so you're not going to crop in, and you can utilize your full range of wide-angle lenses. All in all, I'd give this body a 4 out of 5. I love the new body design. I love the grip. I love the way it feels. It's super fun to shoot. The sensor's super sharp. You're going to get tons of detail out of this thing. The only reason I'm dropping it down is because it doesn't do that well in high ISO settings, so it really limits who this camera is for. Now, if you're a dedicated landscape photographer or a studio photographer where you can control the light, and I would even say for some wedding photographers, this thing does well, but if you're in scenarios where you're constantly changing bright and darks and you have to deal with shadows, I probably wouldn't want to use this body. But if you're in studio, this is a workhorse, it's a beast, and you're gonna love it.